Welcome to Just Wanna Quilt, a research podcast coming out of Tulane University Law School, where we explore all kinds of things, stories about quilting, tools, field trips, maybe some famous quilters stop by, and, of course, a little bit of copyright thrown in just for fun. This is Elizabeth Townsend Guard. I'm a law professor at Tulane University Law School, and I just wanna quilt. So today we talk to Carrie Shelby. She is an art quilter, and she also belongs to the guild Quilters Crossing of Palm Harbor, which is in Clearwater, Florida. She talks to us about her quilting life and also the upcoming show Quilting Under the Palms, January 25th and 26th, again in Clearwater, Florida.
My name is Carrie Shelby, and I'm calling from lovely Largo, Florida.
Lovely Largo, Florida. Awesome. Now, where is Largo, Florida, in Florida?
Largo is in the Tampa Bay area, and cool. Where I'm situated is closest to the beaches near the Gulf of Mexico.
And how long have you said that you were a New Yorker, so how long have you been there?
Yeah, we've been down here about 25 years.
Yeah.
But I'm originally from Queens, New York.
It's so funny. So Corey, who's one of my law students that does a lot of work on this project, I met her mom, and she's the same situation. They've been in Florida a long time, but she's such a New Yorker. It made me laugh so hard, because I was like, there's nothing Florida about you. I was like, this is a lie. It was really funny. I was like, okay. Anyway, okay, so tell me your first memory of someone sewing or quilting in your life.
You know, I've been thinking about this question, and that's really a tough one because it goes way back to being a toddler and loving to touch textiles. I remember there was this silk tassel that I took apart, and it was just so cool that I could figure out how to take something apart. Mm-hmm. But in terms of actually sewing a project, I would say I was probably a 6 or 7 year old girl, and my mom and dad really recognized that I was a maker, that I liked to create things. And they got me this really cool kit where I got to sew a fabric walrus. And it was all hand sewn. And I remember. There was just something so cool about that.
That's really cool. I love that. And then did you continue to be a maker then? Tell me a little bit more about your journey.
I've always been a maker. I studied art in college, not knowing what I was going to do when I graduated. Mm-hmm. But I did end up working as a display artist for Macy's. Really? And then I kind of segued into pattern making for Butterick, but I was doing the craft patterns, not the fashion patterns.
So what were you doing for that? How did that work?
Well, what would happen is we'd have designers that would provide us their finished product. And at that point, it was like Muppet Babies. This is way back in the early 80s. Muppet Babies, and Martha Stewart had this beautiful teddy bear. And my job was basically to take apart the model and figure out how to create the pattern pieces so that a home sewer could create that item.
That's amazing. Now, so to me, there's a couple of things that pop up in my mind with that. First, you have to have some kind of amazing puzzle brain to figure out how to do that. That seems... And I do. I'm like, besides just being an avid New York Times crossword puzzle person, I just like... And I don't know if it's maybe being able to see things in 3D or that I can kind of envision, know? Really? Yeah. So that was fun. All right. So let's take the Muppet Babies. Now, were these things coming to you? You had Butterick had a relationship, I would imagine, with Sesame Street or the Sesame Street Workshop. Like, people weren't just sending you randomly things, right? No. I was kind of at the tail end of the process. Right. So this was all authorized. This wasn't just random weirdness showing up on your desk. This was official. And I knew, there was slotted projects, and one would be, okay, now it's time to do Muppet Baby. Or then it could be Christmas ornaments. Right. Different things. Okay, that's so cool. Now tell me a little bit more about that process. You get the Muppet Baby on your desk. What do you do with it? Like, what was your sort of strategy? Like, did you look at it for a long time? Did you just tear into it immediately? Take photographs? Well, I would look at it, but I would basically tear it apart. But I had to carefully tear it apart. Did you have two Did you have like one that you tore apart?
I have several to work with.
Okay.
So
It wasn't
and I would also have photographs. I'd have enough visual cues to work with. Yeah.
And then, did you feel like we've been hearing from the art quilters is that they make these things and they are very, like their art quilts are really complicated, but then their patterns are very simple. Like they can't make every art quilt into a pattern, right? Uh-huh. So did you feel like that? Like how did you strategize? Like you've gotten this thing in front of you. Like was there a situation where you had to either simplify it or sort of think through how do we do they always look like the original, or did you have to kind of modify it?
The goal is you want to get it as close to the original because that's what was photographed and put on the pattern envelope.
Oh, that already happened.
Right. So you don't want to disappoint.
Oh, that's a lot of pressure because the photograph is already there.
You're dealing with like a big name like Martha Stewart. But we'd also have to say, okay, how can we simplify the patterns because you're dealing with a skill set. So somebody would have to be able to recreate it. So, but I was able to do it.
That's so cool. Yeah. That's so cool. Okay. So you did that, which is awesome. And then what happens? But you weren't quilting at the time because you're pretty new to quilting.
I've always liked to sew my own clothes, curtains, never really got into quilting. It wasn't even in my mind that was something I wanted to do. And then I would say, when we left New York and came down to Florida, it became more about I got to get a job and make money. And I got into retail, so I kind of put all that creative stuff on the shelf. And then recently, I would say like in the last 5 years, I've had a lot more time on my hands because I'm not working.
That's nice.
And I realized I started journaling because I was getting very frustrated that I realized I needed to create stuff, but I didn't know what. I couldn't, nothing was coming out, no ideas. And then through journaling, I discovered what I really like is textiles.
How did that happen? Well, okay. How?
It made me think about what were my earlier happy memories. What did I enjoy doing?
Because you were exploring kind of like what makes you kind of...
Exactly. And going back to what felt good, what did I enjoy? Where was I getting affirmation? And I was like, you know what? I really like fabric. So I said, you know what? I'm going to make a quilt. I just had this idea, I'm going to make a quilt, but we're in Florida. You don't really need quilts. So
no one needs quilts. I mean,
so
at our day and age.
I've learned that, okay, so I can make a tablecloth using a quilt.
So that's what you started with?
Yeah. And it didn't occur to me that you could even buy patterns for quilts. I just said, I'm going to create my own pattern. So, and that's what I did. I created a quilt it was a Christmas theme. And when I look at it now, and it's only 2 years, I did this December of 2016, November, December. And it wasn't until that following April where I actually joined the guild.
Okay, so you've been quilting 2 years. How? Tell me what you've been doing in the last 2 years.
Well, I realized that my goal with this guild was to take all the workshops that they offered, to take as many as I could, because I wanted to learn as many techniques as I could. And my other goal is I consider myself an art quilter. I want to be able to take the pictures that I have in my head and turn that into a quilt. And
interesting. And
the exciting thing was this past year, every other year our guild does, 1 year we'll work up and gear up for a quilt show, and the off year we do what's called a challenge quilt. So my first year in the guild, we had the challenge quilt.
That's
you're
cool.
given a fat quarter. Everybody gets the same fat quarter, the same fabric, color, pattern, whatever. And you're given a theme, and it's wide open from there. And the theme was telling tales. And the fat quarter was this green fabric, which turns out is my favorite color. And I ended up making a picture of my golden retriever, Brady, and he's looking out at a lake, a neighborhood lake where we love to walk. And I tried to throw in as many techniques as I could.
Really? That's really cool. Yeah. So, what techniques?
I learned how to trapunto out of that.
Fabulous.
I learned just different embroidery and making, just the basic things like how do you put a border on? How do you do the binding? Things like that.
Right.
And the best part was, one of my goals as an art quilter is I wanted to have my work on display.
Yeah.
And it turns out what this guild does is they contract with local galleries. In this case, it was the Dunedin Fine Arts Center, which is very well known in this area. And they have a beautiful gallery. And our quilts from the guild for this challenge were on display this time.
Oh, that's so cool.
So
that's
I was
really
like,
cool.
oh, how do you like that? I set that goal and I made it? That's pretty cool.
That's really cool. That's really, really cool. Does that make you want to enter other shows? I interviewed, who did I interview? Somebody that said that you should just enter shows because it helps you, you get back a lot of advice and critique and all of that. Did it make you want to enter these? Yeah. Do you have the bug?
I mean, and it's like I have this running list, and I have to make sure it's sometimes on my iPhone. I have several on the iPhone and a pencil and paper list of just these ideas of what I want to do.
Yeah.
And I'm not quite sure if I'm ready to do like one of these national ones, but I'm ready to start working as a like consignment in different galleries with my art quilts. So that's kind of the next step that I see.
Interesting. Now, do you feel like you have to make money at doing the art quilt, or is it like, do you have that kind of economic side of it, or do you feel like I'm an artist, this is my time to create? Sort of, what is your sort of, when you're thinking about that?
I'm not thinking about money.
That's nice.
I'm not. I mean, it's sort of like if that comes, that's nice. But right now, it's more about the process of creating.
Yeah.
The generation of ideas.
Yeah.
The learning.
Well, and you've done stuff for money before. Like you've worked, you've done patterns, you've done all this. You know that's different, right? There's a different. I don't know. Like when you're doing it like for that, like I don't know. I feel that way. I feel like there's my hat of like, this is just for me hat, which I really like. I really like that hat. And then there's the kind of expectation of the world on whatever it is kind of hat. They're different. I feel different when I'm doing work, whatever the work is.
I guess, because for me, if I think about the expectations, I'm going to think about, well, what do people like or want to see versus, well, what is it that I want to do? Yeah. Right. And I think I'm trying to really find the way for me to express myself.
That's really cool. I love it. So you said that are you going to seek out national teachers or spaces for art quilts? There's like this whole thing. We haven't started to get into it yet. There's different people that you could study under and all of these things, you know.
Yeah. Well, the beauty part of this guild is that since we do so well on our quilt shows, besides putting most of that money back into philanthropy project, there's always money set aside, and we bring in national quilters.
So you don't have to go anywhere. That's cool.
What's that?
You don't have to go traveling anywhere. I mean, they come to you.
No. I mean, just this past year, we had David Taylor, who's an incredible, he does all kinds of applique work, and he's doing what, like, I thought I want to do in terms of how to, like, take a picture and just use fibers, use fabric. I mean, it's just beautiful work that he does. So he was really cool. He did a whole trunk show, and that was fun. And then Ellen Lindner, she's here in Florida, but she's also won some awards. And she actually taught this really cool process called double reverse applique. And it was just like, where is she taking us with this? Because it was crazy. You were like thinking backwards. And then once it was done, you're like, hey, this is great. So I have what I made in that class, and of course everybody has the same image. We were all working on the same image. So my goal for this upcoming year is I have this portrait of my dog's face, and that's one of the things I want to do is try taking that technique and turning it into a Brady portrait.
Super cool. All right, so you joined the guild. Tell me about joining the guild and what it's like to be a new quilter, but not a new sewer, to the guild experience. What's the role of the guild in your life?
The guild, wow. You know, there was something that came up in the podcast with the quilt fiction lady.
Yeah, right, Frances. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think she was talking about something about this being, maybe it was her, maybe not. Sewing is very solitary.
Yeah.
But there's something about what I love about the Guild is show and tell.
Yeah.
To me, that is the best part.
Yeah.
And the very first meeting that I attended at the Guild, they save show and tell. They have a monthly business meeting, and show and tell is the very last item on the agenda.
It keeps everybody there, I think.
Yes. And I was just blown away.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, wow, these women.
I know.
This is all women in the Guild at this point. And it's just, the creativity just blew me away. And all the different interests. You know, it wasn't just traditional piecing. It just ran the gamut from modern to traditional to art quilting. And then
it's kind of insane, right? So, you know, when I see that, this project's been really amazing this last year. It's hard to believe we're not even at the 1 year mark for the podcast. And what I'm seeing is, what you're seeing is this incredible, like the level of creativity we as humans have is remarkable. And that obviously we're a select group and people who are really interested and they work on it and all that. So, but I'm not seeing a huge divide between like the quality of work of a professional or famous quilter and every other, other quilters. It's just, the level is so amazing at this point. I mean, just incredible. So it's interesting that you felt that way too. It's really just like, it's just remarkable. I'm so proud of us as quilters. We do so many really cool projects, right? Like,
and what I found was that very first meeting that I attended before the business, before the gavel was struck to start the meeting, there was such a hubbub of activity. There were all these different tables in the room, and I had never felt that kind of energy. It was very first of all, very positive energy.
Super positive, right?
Just, just so many things that they were working on. And that's what blew me away, between the energy in the room and then to see how it manifested with these beautiful art, quilts.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And it's like people leave their other crap at the door. They're like, quilting is like your sacred space of fun. And like, we're not going to let anything else get in the way. It's sort of this really interesting choice of at least that's what I'm experiencing, first personally experiencing, but also just the whole thing. It's just it's about the art. It's about the quilting. It's not about other crap, and it's really cool. I mean, I don't know. We're all dedicated. I think seems like the commonality with quilters is we're overachievers.
Well, that, and also generous. What I noticed was generous in terms of encouraging new quilters. That wherever you start, wherever you come in, with whatever your skill sets are, that's perfectly okay.
Right.
At least with this Guild, there was no expectation that you had to be at a certain level. It was just hey, that's what you do, great.
Why do you think that is? Do you think that's because we're in this hyper capitalist environment with quilting, with all the toys, all the everything, right? But it still sort of has that kind of community. There's something more to it than just buying the toys. And is that because of sort of where it comes from, do you think? Or why is this atmosphere what it is?
That's a good question. I mean, I guess because so much of the activity is tied into, in a way, you're giving yourself. A lot of these things then become gifts for people.
Right. That it's a gift to
and maybe that's also, and also sometimes utilitarian. I mean, it's, you're doing something that makes you feel good. Whether you're giving it as a gift for someone or you've created something that's useful. I don't know if that answers your question.
It's funny. I think babies are getting born and people get ill and all these things. There's also this sense of almost a moral obligation. There's a moral ground of I am going to, this baby is born and I am going to make this thing to celebrate this life of this baby, or whatever these life events are. But it isn't just oh, I'm going to go pick up a present. You know what I mean? There's a sense of the baby, I must now take what you're saying, take my hands and my creative juices and make this thing that will mark the moment of this baby. It's got a very kind of meaning, like you're making meaning by whatever it is, even if it's just a really simple quilt that you're sending off to a charity quilt. You're still saying, I'm giving you all my time, you know?
For me, I'm always, when I'm doing that kind of a project,
yeah,
where I know it's going to be handed off to someone, I'm always thinking about that person.
Yeah,
whether I know them or not. And you just remind me, I made a quilt for my dad. Yeah. His Alzheimer's. And I thought, what could I do that would, besides keeping him warm. They live in Illinois, it gets chilly. But I did a crazy quilt, and I just put in so many things because he's the artist in the family. I think I got it from him. And I just thought, I'm going to just put in so many textures and colors, and it's just going to be crazy. It's not going to, because he's kind of crazy now, you know? So it's sort of like, and he loved it. The response I got was just like, putting it around him, and he loved it. So but in the process of making that quilt, I was always thinking about my dad. Yeah, and totally. Beautiful memories would come up. So it's so
interesting, right? Like love. I made a quilt for somebody who I made it for them, but I was really irritated with them. So I felt like all that anger was going into the quilt. Like, I'm making this for you, but I'm not happy with you right now. I also think of Sean Kimber, who's an art quilter who does a lot of Black Lives Matter kind of related stuff. And she quilts in silence and just thinks about what's the profoundness of what she's doing. Like the idea that we are this thinking process of love or whatever it is, like it keeps going in it's just part of, I feel like it gets quilted. It's kind of hokey, but I feel like it gets quilted into the quilt. That, I hope not the mean, mad part. No, but it was only once, but I think I was also mad because I made one that was really tiny squares and there were thousands of them, and it was just like between like the person that had become irritated and the quilt itself, I was just like, I am so done with this. You
were ready to move on.
In so many ways. It was a cathartic experience, I guess. I'm just like, okay, this is tedious. You are tedious.
Wow.
So I don't know. Like, I don't know, maybe hate quilts it shouldn't be a thing. It wasn't hate, but we'll start a whole new movement of like giving quilts to people that you really are not happy with. I don't know. Okay, so art quilting. So tell me about when you were new blood in this quilt guild. So what happened to you when you got there? Did you volunteer for things, or did you how did they welcome you into the guild?
Well, I think since I'm one of the younger members in the guild.
It's a nice feeling, isn't it?
It makes me feel really young. I love that.
I like that part too. Yeah. I feel like, oh, you're a babe.
Yeah. But the other thing is the skill set that I bring in terms of computer acumen that a lot of
yes.
have. And it's like, ooh, she knows how to do that. Let's get her involved in this or that. Right. So I kind of got volunteered for what's called the membership co-chair.
Oh.
Not knowing what that was all about, but I'm like, yeah, sure. And it's a year-long commitment. And basically, it's just we take attendance at meetings because we require X amount of meetings that you have to attend in a year. And then it's also bringing on board new members. We have a wait list. Our guild is very popular. So it's managing that wait list and making sure these new members hit requirements, and then we get them on board.
Wow.
But what the benefit of being membership co-chair I've learned is I pretty much know everybody's name in the guild.
That's really cool.
I've been able to put, the name to the face. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so that's been a great benefit, I think.
I like that.
And besides the fact I know Excel, so that helps.
Totally. Well, then you're in, right? I like that.
So, I mean, in that respect, I think that, they see somebody who can bring a skill set that's needed in this field.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's true of groups, right? That's quite lovely.
Especially when they get that big,
How big is the guild?
We have 90 members.
That's a good sized member. Yeah. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's the Quilters Crossing of Palm Harbor. That's the name of the guild?
Yes, it is.
And you're having your show on January 25th and 26th.
Yep.
In Clearwater, Florida. And you go to quilterscrossing.net. That's where the page is for the group. So tell me what is happening. Tell me about getting ready for the show. There's got to be a lot going on.
Yeah, I mean, the plans for this started immediately after the last show, which was January of 2017. I mean, as soon as it's like they do the post-mortem, like what lessons learned, okay, now it's time to gear up for the next show.
Yeah.
And what we've done is one of the big things we do for fundraisers is what's called an opportunity quilt.
Yeah.
Where, and that's one of the first big projects that gets done. It's a big queen-size quilt. There's discussion about, the group has to select the pattern and the whole issue of, well, can we use that pattern? Will the designer use that pattern?
Because let me pause you there for that. So when you did choose the opportunity quilt, you're only making one, is that right? The opportunity quilt. So how did you choose the pattern, and did you contact the designer? Sort of what ended up happening? What
happened there was the pattern was chosen based on the fact that you want something that you could have many hands on. So it's a very intricate piece. Is
it blue and yellow? Is that what it is? Okay.
Yes.
I see.
And from my understanding, yes, permission was gotten from the designer to be able to use that.
Why? Because you're going to show it? Because
we're going to show it, and then we're going to sell what we call opportunity tickets, which means you buy so many of these tickets and you have an opportunity to potentially win this quilt.
Got it. And you felt that just having the quilt itself, just like making the quilt, that you wanted, why did you want to ask permission of the quilt? Why? I mean, I think that's super awesome. But I'm curious, because you were selling the raffles, or because it was so public? Sort of what in terms of the custom did you do?
Good question. I mean, it wasn't me personally.
Yeah.
There's all these different committees.
Right.
A lot. So I remember at a business meeting, it came up when we were getting ready to choose a design, that one of the more senior members said, make sure that you get permission from the designer of that quilt. Because yes, it is very public. It appears on all of our promotional materials. Right. So whether that was needed or not, I guess that's just the custom in the guild, is to make sure that we've got permission.
Really? Quite lovely. Okay. Okay, so...
And let me just backtrack on that. So all the money that's raised from that opportunity quilt, all of the money will then get donated to a charity that we choose. And in this one, it's Florida Sheriff's Youth Ranch. And they have a location right in Safety Harbor, which is near Clearwater. And it's basically a child care. I mean, these are needy children that are taken out of their parents' or guardians' hands because of circumstances, and they need a place to live. And they have cottages set up, and it's like a group home setup. Last year, we got to go around this time to present all our quilts to the residents at that time. We had like 35 quilts. Each child got their own quilt, and surveys had been done prior to that to see, well, what are their interests or favorite colors?
Really?
So
that's a lot of that's very loving.
Oh, and it was just, even now I get tingles just thinking about that event, because these children were just so thrilled. There was one little boy who got one that had like choo-choo railroads all over it, and he was just like maybe 6 or 7, and he was walking around just so happy with his quilt, and you realize what a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
So it's that kind of thing, like all that money. So
that's a lot of effort. The opportunity quilt, all the quilts. Why do you think that's an important part of a guild?
Because I think that's what most women in this guild want to do. That there's this need to be able to give back to the community, to take care of people in need.
Yeah.
And that's just one of many projects that we're involved with each year.
Yeah.
And I just think that, at least for Quilters Crossing, we're a 501c3, and we take that seriously. We want to be able to help the people in our community.
That's really cool.
Doing what we love to do, which is to quilt. Yeah.
I love it. I really do. Well, I think that's really, really interesting. Okay, so you've got a whole bunch of stuff going on. So you've got the vendors. Are you in charge of the vendors too right now?
Yeah, that was the other thing I sort of volunteered for, because we have two people that share this quilt show, and it's like this huge corporation. I mean, it's trying to like all these moving parts to plan the show. And because we get about 2,000 people that will come in over the course of 2 days. So it's a lot of people that come through. Yeah. My role as the vendor coordinator is to solicit vendors to want to attend our show, to rent a booth space. Yeah. And we'll always go back to the vendors that have been at our previous shows as a courtesy to see if they want to come back. Yeah. And then there's usually some vacancies, so we fill those in. So my job is to make sure that all the booths are rented. Yeah. So are you good? Are you ready to go? You're still working on it? I've been ready to go for months. I got that last check. It's like, we're good to go. Now nobody can drop out on me. You know? Yeah. But we've got all our vendor spaces. We've got 10 different vendors. It's a balance of local and kind of regional. Within the state of Florida, and good balance of whether it's materials or notions or sewing machines, or even we have long arm. We have a guild member who has a long arm business. No way. And she's going to be there, and she teaches all over the country. She's becoming nationally known, and she's one of our members, which is pretty cool. That's really so she'll have a booth space there, as well as we have a local quilt shop who we do a lot of partnership with, and they've donated fabrics to us, but they will be at our show as well. So, and they have their own long arm business. So that's going to be interesting. We're going to have two different long armors. That's really great. Manufacturers. So that's kind of excited about that. That's and then very cool. I need to, and what part of the other thing, besides just handling the monies from them and, getting the booths rented, is just keeping them up to date, communicating with them, making sure that I've got all the necessary papers like tax resale certificates, who would have known, but got to keep stuff like that on file. And then I've also taken on Facebook promotions. You have? How's that going? Well, I was getting pretty frustrated because I really thought, hey, we have a Facebook Quilt Show page and nothing's happening on there. And I really wanted to promote our vendors. I thought, what is it? Yeah. What is it that brings people to our show? I mean, this is all new to me. And I'm thinking, well, at least I can let them know about shows. And we had somebody else who had like admin rights to the page. Yeah. So it took some finagling for me to get, okay, come on, let me do it. Let me put So what's the Facebook page? Let me take a look while you were talking about it. I think it's Quilters Crossing Inc. Let's see if I can pull it up here. Quilters Crossing Quilt Guild? Yeah. But we have the show page is... Oh, I see. Quilters Crossing Inc. Quilt Show. Right. Okay. And then if you see, there's some posts there. Oh, you just liked it. Thank you. You're welcome. And then I've just been doing all of these photo posts, creating, whether it's on that page or the event page that it's attached to. Yeah. And we've got crazy stuff that these guild members do. This is great. I mean, dolls they make. We have something called a Couture Decor and More exhibit. And so that's anything that's not quilts, anything that has fiber in it. Yeah. And for people have told me in the guild that a lot of people come to the show just to see what's in that part of our show. Really? There was a lot of that at Houston. I was kind of amazed at how much space not quilting was taking up. It was really interesting. It's related. And then what about these dolls? We have a whole group within our guild that love to make dolls. Interesting. Yeah, and that's just... And I'm trying to balance, like, I don't want to give everything away, so these are just like little teasers. You know, like, you may be seeing $1 or $2, but there's going to be a lot more dolls in that. That's really cool. Different artists, you know? I love it. Okay, so other people. So do you want to sort of, since we're so not on time. We're way past half hour. See, that's what happens, right? We haven't gotten to anything. This is ridiculous. All right, you're going to have to come back and talk more because this is ridiculous. Okay, so it's anything else you want to talk about? I'm going to post this so people know about the show. Anything else? Oh, that would be wonderful that you would post it. We also have, like most quilt shows, we have a boutique, but we've been told that this is not like your granny's crochet pot holders.
Yeah.
You know, that the items really have to be up to the caliber of being in a nice boutique. And so I'm real curious to see
what that is, because you haven't been to have you been to their show before?
No, I've never been to their show. I mean, because I started in the Guild in April of 2017, and their show was January of 2017.
So you just missed it. So this is like a whole new thing. Okay, well, you're going to have to come back after the show and tell us what this was like. That's what we're going to do. Because,
that'll be fun.
Yeah, that'd be great. That would be really great. Let's see if we can get people. I know you're going to be super busy at the show, but we should also do some Facebook Live and some stuff that's happening at the show, like live from the show. That'd be really great. So we'll have to see if we can get if there are people that are going that are part of our army. Would be super awesome.
Oh, that would be cool.
Yeah, it'd be really cool. That's kind of the goal in some way, is to have like. Because I don't know, I can't travel easily, and so I just loved when people have video and photos of these shows of sort of what they are. It's like this little window into them. I think it's really great. It makes us all feel like we're part of it. At least I feel that way. So,
and then I wonder, it's sort of like, okay, so this is a Florida show.
Right.
Are shows different in, Louisiana versus California versus Wyoming?
So
or
true.
I'm sure there's a commonality, but then it's like, what makes us different?
Right. Right. Exactly. Yeah. That's right. And the guild, there's there's like 41 guilds that all come together to form a kind of big guild, and they do the same. They do a show every other year, and they do the teaching. And so it's interesting how different organizations do it. But for your organization to be putting on this big a show is really quite something, right? Like That's remarkable.
And the interesting thing is we're in what's called snowbird season here in Florida. So that's why our show is in January.
Very clever.
You're trying to get as many people as you can. But also, we have competing shows. I mean, this is the season coming up now for quilt shows in Florida, like January through March, April. It's just
craziness.
Pick a weekend, you'll find a show.
I like that. We'll have to have that as, have to experience that. That would be really cool. Well, I am just psyched that you came. This is really cool. I really appreciate it. So will you, after the show is over, or you can do it now, sign up and come back and tell me sort of what happened and what went right and what went wrong and all those things, like the behind the scenes of how it went for your first organizing. It'd be really great.
Part of me is like, oh God, I hope I don't have horror stories. It's
just part of the thing. It's all going to be fine. Like even when there's, it's just part of, that from putting on and doing things. Like, it's just part of the joy, the chaos, I don't know. Just let it keep, it's none of it's really that,
Well, what I've learned is like, I keep reminding myself, this is not life and death.
Exactly.
It's just a quilt show.
It's just a quilt show. That's right.
Right. I mean,
exactly. That's what I'm thinking. It's just life and death. Right. No, it's quilt show.
It puts it in perspective for me,
Yeah, totally.
People, can get worked up. It's like, oh no.
Oh yeah, totally. People get way out of control, crazy about stuff, and it's like whatever. It's all gonna be fine.
My modus operandi is just have fun.
Exactly.
This is about having fun. So, and being with good people. So.
And being with good people. Well, come back and tell us about it. Take notes of things that happen. It would be great.
Okay, cool. I will do that.
Do you need to review this before we post it?
I think we're good.
I think we're good too. You were very well behaved. I'm just kidding. There was nothing naughty.
That's good.
Right? Oh, okay. Awesome. Send me, I think I can get, I'm going to put a picture from, I'm going to use your opportunity quilt probably to post it. Does that sound okay
That would be wonderful.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, cool. Awesome. We will do that very shortly.
Thank you,
fabulous.
Elizabeth.
Take care. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. So you've been listening to Just Wanna Quilt, a research podcast coming out of Tulane University Law School. And I'm Elizabeth Townsend Garr. If you like this podcast, keep listening. Also, we have a Facebook group. Come join us. We talk about a lot of things. We also have an Instagram account. And of course, most importantly, I really hope you get a chance to quilt today.